Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Leo Roy. I'm your Commissioner of the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and I'm very happy to welcome you here at State Pier, one of 4 piers owned by the Commonwealth which provide regional economic development opportunities. We are here to cut the ribbon on the latest investment by the Baker-Polito administration in this new refrigeration system. I hope that you're all wearing your long johns because it is cold in here, and we will try to move the speaking program quickly. They say that failure is an orphan, but success has 1,000 mothers and fathers. And I think there's nothing truer than that with this project. The success of this project has been the work of many, many people and many groups, and supported tremendously by our legislative delegation. And thank you so much for your support. It's also been a great partnership among state agencies, and a number of state agencies were involved in this effort, including Administration and Finance, Housing and Economic Development, and the great partnership between the DCR and the Department of Capital Asset Management and Maintenance. We have a great partnership with DCAM on projects like this, where we work hand in glove to bring a project like this together. Built in 1915, this pier does much more than people realize, and I just want to highlight 5 things that this pier does. It links southeastern Massachusetts to the world as the U.S. point of entry for international cargo, including the produce that you see around us this afternoon. It provides a vital transportation link to the islands of Nantucket, Martha's Vineyard, and Cuttyhunk. In fact, it's the only link to Cuttyhunk is from State Pier. It supports the public safety mission of the Massachusetts State Police and the Environmental Police. It's home to several local maritime businesses that rely on being here in the seaport. And finally, it provides something very rare here in New Bedford, and that is an open dock where fishermen can use it for a couple of hours to reset their nets before they go out to sea. There really isn't another open dock here for the fishermen to do that, which is so important. In short, State Pier is the heart of this working waterfront, and we are so grateful to the DCR for the investment by the administration in this new facility. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce one of the hardest working women in Massachusetts, your Lieutenant Governor, Karyn Polito. Since taking office, she has committed herself to working closely with our municipalities, because the Baker-Polito administration understands that we can accomplish so much more together in partnership with our municipalities, and it's been a great partnership that is getting so much done to help the people of the Commonwealth. Please join me in welcoming your Lieutenant Governor, Karyn Polito.
Thank you, Leo. It's great. I never thought I'd be so happy to be so cold. And this is a great day for New Bedford. It's a great day for the Commonwealth and our region, and for the industry that we support with this investment. I want to thank my colleagues in government, obviously Commissioner Roy, Secretary Heffernan, Secretary Beaton and Ash, who also had a lot to do with this investment, and my colleagues in the state legislature, Representative Marquis, Cabral, Straus, and Kotero. Just an incredible team effort that led to the completion of this project today. I have the honor of chairing the Seaport Economic Council. We have 78 coastal communities in Massachusetts, and the Economic Council is focused on leveraging the assets along the coastline for economic activity. This State Pier is an economic asset that is owned by the state, but is obviously utilized extensively by this deep water port in New Bedford. And early on in our administration, I will remember always the meeting that we had with the industry leaders, with our delegation, and the appeal with the mayor that they made to turn this building into proper refrigeration, to capture the economic potential with the warehousing of produce like this for shipment to places all across the Northeast. And the price tag associated with it was no small sum, to the investment of $3.5 million. To build out this refrigeration, we needed to be assured that this day, when the investment was made, that it would actually happen, that industry leaders would use this facility for the warehousing of shipment. for these shipments, and that this would actually happen. So we were convinced, after doing our homework, that this investment would certainly create a great return for our Commonwealth. I understand that the value of this produce is about $100 million per season. And of course, the jobs associated with the use of this facility and in this entire port are around 7,000 jobs. And that this deep water port in New Bedford represents about 2% of the state's GDP. So there's a lot of activity in this port, from commercial fishing to the vessels that come into this facility. Each vessel represents about $225,000 worth of produce that is being distributed to places all across New England and a little beyond. So clearly today is a celebration of a partnership, both private and public, and a celebration of collaboration. And certainly when the state can leverage its assets and make an investment, to have a return like the one we're seeing today is clearly worth it. Congratulations to everyone. I'm thrilled to be here and to round out my day here in New Bedford, from the start of our day at the Chamber to our cabinet meeting to going to places like the New Bedford Airport and investing more through MassWorks in places like Dartmouth. And this investment today shows that when the state and local government work together, we can do great things. So thank you all very much for being here, and I'll turn it back over to you, Leo.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. I'd now like to introduce you to the newest member of the Cabinet, but no stranger to the Baker-Polito administration, one of the fellows with a very, very difficult job. It's your Administration and Finance Secretary, Mike Heffernan.
Thank you, Leo. This is such a prime example of not only how we can put our capital dollars to work for the economy in the South Coast of New Bedford, but of just the fantastic cooperation we have between your legislative delegation and backstopped by the incredibly hard work of Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, who travels to all 351 cities and towns so that this type of economic activity, this type of opportunity is given to all 6.7 million citizens here in Massachusetts. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Carol Gladstone and our folks at DCAM who coordinated this wonderful construction project, along with Leo Roy and his folks from DCR and all of the local volunteers and elected officials that have helped. We try to repair and fix what we have, and then we like to be smart on what we build, and taking a 102-year-old structure and making it a year-round port facility for one of the most valued ports in America. We're incredibly proud. As Leo said, I have a tough job, but this is the most fun part, coming to see what our tax dollars can really do in New Bedford and around the state. So thank you very much, and we're very, very glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We happen to be standing in the district of State Representative Tony Cabral, who's chairman of Bonding, Capital Expenditures, and State Assets. Representative.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Secretary of A&F. This is really a great day. But before I move on to my remarks, I want to also recognize the fact that our Senator Montigny, is not here right now because he had a conflict. Just wanted to let you know that he's here in spirit. He was also part of this partnership. And without, of course, our partners in the Senate, it becomes a lot more difficult to get things accomplished. So on behalf of Senator Montigny, I know Audra is here from his office representing the Senator, so I just wanted to make sure we made that acknowledgement. This is really a great opportunity. As you know, this delegation, myself and the rest of the House delegation, and including Senator Montigny, we've been working with the administration for quite some time to make this happen. At some point we thought it was going to be an uphill battle, but once everyone got around the issue, once the private industry and the city, but in particular our private partners here in the city that deal and been dealing with this kind of freight every year, they made the case, and they made the case very effectively. Not only with us, they already had made the case with us. We were convinced. It was about working with them to make sure that the administration was convinced and they understood the benefits and the economic impact this could have for us here in New Bedford, not only for New Bedford, but for the region. So congratulations to everyone. Thanks on behalf of myself, Senator Montague, and the rest of the delegation. I think they're going to, each one of them will speak as well. I want to thank the Baker and Polito administration. I want to thank the new Secretary of A&F. You know, he's been on the job only a couple of months, I think going on to 3 months now. But I can tell you he has really got involved with the nitty-gritty details that are necessary. I think he's going to be a great friend for us here in Southeastern Mass and in New Bedford in particular. So we welcome him here, and the fact that he's actually took the time to come down, it really tells you something about his dedication and how important he thinks that capital investments of this nature are important. You know, as we always say, the state and the state dollars, meaning the taxpayers' dollars, has always been extremely important for us here in New Bedford and for us in the South Coast. The state has to be one of those partners, and the state has again stepped up to the plate and become that partner that we always need to sort of close that financial gap that we always seem to have in the South Coast. So thank you again, and let's cut the ribbon soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to now introduce the Chairman of the Transportation Committee in the House, Representative Bill Straus. Representative Straus has taken a very strong interest in the pier because of the vital role it plays in the transportation network. The rail is right out at the street. We're between the street and the rail and the water. This is a nexus of transportation. So, Chairman Straus.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have to say, if we learn that the Commissioner has changed his cell phone number, I may be partly to blame because he knows how often I call and text, and he's very good about that. This is quite an event today, and I want to just acknowledge and point out a few things. As I said in an earlier event with regard to the Lieutenant Governor, very soon it's not going to be news at all when she's here because she comes so often. And it's not really a visit to the South Coast. We're the best coast. And her interest, in all seriousness, and that of the governors in our part of the state has been extraordinary. They have been great working partners with us, as have their appointees in the agencies. She's not here today, but I want to thank Secretary Heffernan's predecessor, Secretary Lepori, who was in that role at A&F when this project was approved. We all had a role as legislators and local officials in advocating for this very important project. But there are a lot of good projects that do not get funded each year. And ultimately, it was a judgment call by the governor and the lieutenant governor to commit very precious resources to this project. So we help sell the project, but the ultimate decision that they have to be responsible for was made by this administration. And we thank you and we thank the governor for making that decision, because this is a great project. We know how wonderful this port is and how important this public pier is to our growth in terms of not just shipping, as you see here today, but the fishing industry as well. These are not movie props surrounding us. These are real clementines that have come in at the near start of the typical season, shipping season, but with this asset now, we have a year-round opportunity for shipping to occur. And I know my colleagues want to speak, but at some point I think we certainly have to recognize Maritime Terminal. David Wechsler is here. I know at some point in the program, I'm not in charge of the program, but at some point I think they want to add a thought or two to thank the Lieutenant Governor, and I'm sure that's going to happen. So it's a great opportunity to be here. I want to thank the Commissioner, DCR. We're going to have new management as part of the administration's reform with mass development taking over management. That's also good for DCR. It'll let them become an even better parks agency than they already are. This is going to be a great asset managed by mass development as a economic component of our very active port. So thank you again, and I'll turn it back to the Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Roger Kotero.
Thank you, Commissioner Roy, and good afternoon, everyone. It's always a pleasure when a little over a year ago, the Lieutenant Governor was here and some of the cabinet members making an announcement about a decision that they recognized the Port of New Bedford as being integral to the maritime economy of the state of Massachusetts, and that this asset has to be invested. There has to be an investment, and there was an investment of some $4 million to expand this refrigeration facility to include, to be a year-round operation. This is important for the economic development of the port in terms of the jobs that it will provide and the commerce activity, but it's also a recognition by this administration that they're going to invest in state assets. They're going to make the economy work. It was maybe a year and a half. We were outside, it was warm weather, and they committed to the project. There's a lot of capital authorizations that the legislature puts out every year that they selected this one, and a little over a year later, we're cutting the ribbon on it, I think is very significant. We're very grateful for that, and I'll always welcome you to New Bedford. So my colleague from the House, when she served there, I welcome her presence here today, and I want to commend the administration for having the foresight to invest in this facility and invest in the maritime industry of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Chris Marquis.
I may be the youngest and the newest, but I'm clearly the smartest because at least I wear a sweater and a vest to be in here. But you've heard all the good things about this particular project, but I think one of the things that you should take away from this is when you work in government, there's long-term investments that you have to deal with on a daily basis, and you got to figure out, do you have a future? Can you deal with the future? How do you invest in the future? And then there's crisis mode. The stuff that happens every single day that you don't know what's going to happen when you wake up in the morning and what's on the newspaper or wherever it is. This, to some degree, fits in both categories, where this pier needed to be fixed quickly and done in a way which would have a long-term effect and a long-term investment. Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have clearly done that in the last 3 years throughout the Commonwealth. They've taken those days where there's crisis mode, whether it would be the MBTA and trying to figure out a way to make it better and making the long-term investments, they did that. Whether it would be with the opioid crisis, every day there's that crisis, and they have long-term investments in trying to deal with that. Whether it be with the state police and the hiring of one fantastic woman, Carrie Gilpin, yesterday. That is good stuff that government can work both in the short term and the long term. And for us to be able to have that in our leadership, in our government at this point in time is immense, because it is a society now that stuff happens quickly, information is percolated quickly, don't know the truth of everything, yet you have to react. And I think when you take a look at how deliberate and thoughtful they are in these long-term investments, the administration has done a great job, and this is one shining example of that. So I want to say thank you to them for that, and I hope that this continues, this noise and this cold air continues for quite some time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. David Wechsler, would you like to say something?
Come forward.
Please, please come.
Token of appreciation. I'll wait till after the meeting.
All right. So, thank
the
you.
best for last.
Saving the best for last. So I'd just like to acknowledge a few people. Mayor Mitchell could unfortunately not be with us today, but he's represented by Ed Washburn of the Harbor Development Corporation. Thank you for being here. And also Ellen from the Seaport Council. Thank you for being with us today. I want to just say thank you to Stephen Kelleher Architects, who are the architects. Thank you for being here and a great work on this project. And also the construction was by Tower Construction. I think City Councilor Hugh Dunn, are you here as well? Rep. Councilor, thank you for joining us. We appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge the DCAM project manager, Barry Heidke. I know Barry is here. Barry, thank you for your great work and the great partnership that we have between DCR and with DCAM. And finally, I'd like to thank the great staff at DCR. I'm blessed to work with a group of such dedicated professionals who care so much about serving the people and improving the quality of life in Massachusetts. I want to thank Jessica Shandon, who's our peer manager, Norm Orrell, who's Director of Planning and Engineering of DCR, and the entire DCR staff for everything you do. I know the weather is getting a little colder, but we find that our DCR parks are now used year-round. And I hope that sometime in the next few weeks you will find yourself in a DCR park. As a last shout out, I want to acknowledge the representatives from the Longshoremen's Union and also the Teamsters who are with us as well, because it's a great partnership between labor and management that makes great things happen. So please, find yourself in a DCR park. And if you will do the cold honors, coming center. One, two, three. Right, open for business. Yes, David now wants the last word.
So I'm not part of the delegation.
Stu?
What?
You're on.
So I'm not part of the delegation. That's why I'm wearing my red fleece. We have a token of appreciation for Karyn because we know that this has been percolating for a long time and we've been working, and we know that the delegation, just as each of them said, we've gotten it up and up, but finally you did it. We know you did it. And we have a special presentation for you that Pierre Bernier commissioned. Want to bring it over? This is Captain Mike Taylor.
I thought you were going to say a box of clementines.
Well, this is almost a box of clementines.
Oh, lovely.
So this is a plate that Mike made. Mike is an artist and a ceramicist with Morocco over here and New Bedford here, with these coming over, and so this is a special gift to you.
I'm so delighted.
Commission. You come to New Bedford, you get something different.
I will treasure this forever. This is so beautiful.
It's better than a paperweight.
So
congratulations.
Well, this will hold my clementines. Okay, that's wonderful.
From our point of view.
Thank you.
From our point of view, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is catching up. We're competing with the ports of Philadelphia and Wilmington. Mike Taylor has been with the company since about 1978. He was on the first Seaport Council. He was the first representative. So this is a working port, and we thank you. That's it.
Come stand with me. I'm going to take a picture. Come stand next to me.
Right.
Something different.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Good people.
Thank you.
Good people.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thanks for all your
Nice touch. Nice touch.